I am late, and I don't want to be late for Michael Snyder, talks about all things movies. Of course, he's got an article in the Marina Times, and he comes and goes on a rainbow. Michael Snyder, welcome to the Mark Thompson Show.
Well, happy 4th of July weekend, Kim, and also Albert, and obviously all of our lovely audience. Enjoy your independence, everybody. That is, unless you're totally reliant on someone else, then I wish you a happy Dependence Day. I'm excited for Mark and Courtney. They're still on the Fredo Corleone tour of Tahoe.
They are, yes, indeed.
If you follow Mark's IG account, you'll know it was apparently Mark's fictional murder mystery Monday on a Thursday this week, as he and Courtney went by the area of scenic Lake Tahoe, where Fredo was betrayed by his brother Michael in The Godfather Part 2. And I hear Courtney spent a good portion of the vacation interviewing potential witnesses to Fredo's death. I could be wrong. We'll find out next week, I think.
So we've got 4th of July weekend upon us, and usually that means pretty big blockbusters coming our way. You know, I think in the years past, you've seen Will Smith with Independence Day and some big hits at the box office. Is that what we're looking at this time?
Well, we have one monster movie opening, and we should really address it. You know, more than 40 years after the release of the initial Indiana Jones movie, which was 1981's near-perfect Raiders of the Lost Ark, we have a fifth and presumably final installment in the beloved adventure series. It is in theaters. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny catches up with relic hunting archaeologist Henry Walton Indiana Jones Jr. We learned in the the third movie, that he was in fact a junior. His father, played by Sean Connery in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. We know him as Indy because we're his friends. And anyway, on the eve of his retirement from academia, we encounter him. And as before, the fedora-wearing, whip-wielding Dr. Jones is played by Harrison Ford, who may now be a craggy 80-year-old, but is still the same charismatic superstar he's been since his earliest screen appearances. And fortunately, Dial of Destiny, directed by James Mangold, the guy that did the movie Logan, which was about the final days of Wolverine, the X-Man. This guy has done a good job here. Dial of Destiny is a satisfying wrap on Indy's 4-decade story. So I don't want to spoil much, but I will say that a prologue set near the end of World War II launches Dial of Destiny in, I'd call it rousing fashion, as a digitally and believably de-aged Ford and Indy's friend and colleague Basil Shaw, played by Toby Jones, vie with Nazi scientist Jürgen Voller, played by the great Scandinavian actor Mads Mikkelsen, for a mysterious artifact known as the Antikythera. I mean, there's always a MacGuffin in the Indiana Jones movies that triggers the exotic expedition. We had the Ark of the Covenant in the first. We had some sort of sacred Sanskrit stones in the second. We had the Holy Grail in the third and the Crystal Skull in the fourth. And now we have the Antikythera, which is better known as the Archimedes dial. Anyway, that's exciting stuff. That fades to black after an extended chase sequence on a careening train behind enemy lines. We catch up with a dispirited Jones in 1969. At the end of the previous film, the Crystal Skull movie, he married his longtime love, Marion Ravenwood, and it turns out that he had a son with her. And but now we see him as miserable in a shabby New York City walk-up apartment. And we don't know what's happened, but his life then is further upended by agents under the direction of Voller, who is now working for NASA. And it's kind of a Werner von Braun style thing, you know, where a kind of cleaned up Nazi comes to America and helps out the space program. But this Voller character is continuing to pursue the Antikythera, and Voller's goons ransack Indy's office and living quarters. And at this point, Shaw's daughter, Helena, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge of TV's Fleabag, enters the fray, but we don't know if she's a friend or foe to Indy, who happens to be her godfather. But can he get up for one last quest that will take him on a danger-fraught journey from a Manhattan ticker tape parade for the Apollo 11 astronauts to a diving expedition in the Mediterranean as he strives to preserve history? You know, even when things get preposterous, because the script was credited to 4 writers and it's literally all over the map, director Mangold keeps things moving at a brisk clip, and Ford, in tandem with Waller-Bridge, they have such a wry, mischievous interaction that they close the deal. This is definitely a step up from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the 4th movie, which was a disappointment to many. And I will be straight up about it. The actor's true age, Ford being 80, brings genuine gravitas and, of course, the occasional wince of pain to this indomitable figure who manages to save the day once more. Spoiler alert, Indy saves the day.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed watching this.
Okay.
If this is his retirement, it was well earned. I mean, Dr. Jones, of course. I can't imagine Ford retiring too soon.
What did you think of you said he was digitally altered to look younger?
Yes, and I bought it more here than any previous use of de-aging. And in fact, they do it twice. They also check in with him again sometime after the end of World War II, but previous to this 1969 setting. And it's tweaked, and I bought it. And it's amazing how vital he seems as the younger Indiana Jones. It's not like teenage Indy. I was into it. And
you think is this movie going to be like the box office, smash that gets all the money this weekend?
I hope it does well. I have to say, honestly, none of the films have touched Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like I said earlier, it is a perfect film, script by Lawrence Kasdan, directed by Steven Spielberg, who went on to direct the other 3 movies that followed it and is not on board as the director here, but is a producer. But James Mangold knows what he's doing, and the action sequences really rock. And Ford is just... he's wonderful. He was born to play the character. He is Indiana Jones. And the dialogue here is terse and witty, and the characterization of the invariably courageous Jones, the button-down archaeology professor and part-time swashbuckler, still wonderful. You
got me all pumped up to see this movie. That's awesome.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Let's move on to the Teenage Kraken movie.
All right. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, is a new feature film from DreamWorks Animation, the studio behind the Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, and How to Train Your Dragon movie franchises. As potential franchises go, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken probably won't approach the heights of those others. Look, it's not terrible. It's not great. There are a couple of lively action sequences here with a few laughs from snappy dialogue delivered by a game cast with a couple big names. I wasn't particularly fond of the animation, which pretty much looks like it came out of the rubbery, rounded Cal Arts style that became flavor of the decade via its use in well-regarded Cartoon Network shows like Adventure Time and Steven Universe. This is an overt and literal fish-out-of-water coming-of-age movie about the Gilmans, a nuclear family in a royal line of mythical sea creatures. So the Gilmans are living on land in a charming oceanside town and passing as human, despite being blue and having kind of finny ears. So teenage daughter Ruby, voiced by Lana Condor, wants to go to prom with her crush, a skateboard-riding good guy, but her mom, voiced by Toni Collette, fears that the family's secret will be revealed since apparently puberty may well trigger the girl's transformation into a gigantic kraken, which would undermine the Gilmans' assimilation into human society. So Ruby and her mom are part of a line of Kraken queens, including Grandmama, voiced by no less than Jane Fonda, and they are dedicated to protecting the ocean from threats such as the one that shows up as the movie progresses. So will Ruby embrace her destiny, On the more conventional side, will she actually be able to go to prom with her dream date, despite the arrival of a potential rival for Skater Boy, new girl in school Chelsea, voiced by Annie Murphy of Schitt's Creek? The world building is kind of soggy, pardon me, and the more familiar teen angst elements are trundled out as one might expect. But as contrived as it is, Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken, which was directed and co-written by Kirk D'Amico, strikes me as okay, if ultimately unmemorable family entertainment. I do believe it's something you want to maybe wait for streaming.
Yeah.
It's not great, but again, it's hard to hate on it, you know?
Yeah. Okay, but unmemorable family entertainment. That's what we'll stick with.
That's what we'll stick with in this case. I wish it had been better. I always wish it had been better, you know, when I come across a film like this. So let's move on to Run, Rabbit, Run, which is a horror movie with some elements of mystery that, despite being set and made in Australia, is sadly not about an evil man-eating kangaroo on the loose. Now, I would definitely watch a movie set in Australia about man-eating kangaroos or like vampire koala bears. But Run, Rabbit, Run stars Sarah Snook, Shiv from the terrific TV series Succession, in a central role as Sarah, a medical professional who is the single mom of a young daughter named Mia. So in the wake of Sarah's father dying and the arrival of a wayward bunny rabbit at the door of the family home, Mia starts acting out, and her behavior becomes even more erratic when she and Sarah visit Sarah's mom, who is dealing with dementia and is confined to an assisted living facility. So as a family tragedy from Sarah's youth begins to haunt her, Mia's actions get crazier, and Sarah responds in an increasingly unhinged manner. It seems like there's an infection here. Although Run, Rabbit, Run had promise, the end result is primarily ponderous, with a few moments of unease, largely due to the skills of Snook and young newcomer Lily Latour as the troubled Sarah and Mia, plus longtime Aussie leading lady Greta Scacchi as Sarah's equally troubled mother, and Damon Herriman, who probably is best known stateside for his supporting turns on the TV crime drama Justified, and the wonderful, darkly comic Hitman with a Heart TV series Mr. In Between. He's Sarah's ex and Mia's father, written by Hannah Kent and directed by Dana Reed. Run, Rabbit, Run treads familiar ground, but often seems to be running in circles. It is on Netflix, though, so it's easy to access.
Would you call it missable?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, there are so many better things to be watching. I wish, I don't want to go to a movie and not like it. I don't want to waste 2 hours of my time. It's not terrible, and it is atmospheric at times, but you'll just feel like you've been here before somehow, even with the Aussie accents.
I'm going to ding you for ponderous and move on to You Hurt My Feelings.
Okay, this came out a little while ago. You Hurt My Feelings is the latest film from the filmmaker Nicole Holofcener, who is just incredibly good at human drama and interaction and the angst of modern life and modern society. In this case, the movie is about a woman who is a novelist who she's written a memoir and got acclaim for it, but she's been struggling to write her second book and get it out there. And in the meantime, she teaches writing. She is played, happily enough, by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and her sister also has her share of problems, and she's played by Michaela Watkins. The cast is pretty terrific. The writer's husband is a psychiatrist who is not sure that he's doing that good a job, played by Tobias Menzies. And among his patients are David Cross and his real-life wife, who is pretty wonderful, Amber Tamlin. And the movie begins with a session with the couple, and they're at one another's throats, and it's very, very funny, and they have a wonderful interplay that must come from being married in real life. But the story is basically about the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character wrestling with her book, with her son, who has all kinds of issues, and how people basically try to deceive one another. She learns that her husband may not really like her new book very well, and she's having trouble getting it published, and yet he's been lying to her about how he feels towards the book. I thought it was pretty wonderful. And again, Nicole Holofcener just really knows how to dig deep into the way people interact, how they deceive one another, and how they ultimately do need one another, and what they do, the compromises they make to keep relationships going. Terrific film.
Yeah, sounds really good. Do we have time to do one more?
I think we could probably squeeze one more in really quickly. Right. It's called The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. And I'll just say quickly, it is essentially the Frankenstein story. It's all about a young woman who's smarter than most of her peers, but lives in a housing project in a southern state. And her brother has been killed because of his relationship to a local gang run by a drug-dealing gangbanger type. And her father has been hooked on drugs since the death of the brother. So her dream and her scientific knowledge combined are going to bring the brother back from the dead. She's going to somehow defeat death, which she perceives of as a disease. And this is very much inspired by Frankenstein. It's kind of like Blackenstein. I'm telling you, man, there are moments in this that I absolutely loved. And it's a little on the contrived side, but there's no complaining about the wonderful performance by Layla DeLeon Hayes as Vicaria, the young girl, and some of the other young actors playing alongside her, and the always terrific Chad L. Coleman as her father, her troubled dad. I guess I'd have to say kudos to Bomani J. Story, the writer and director of this thing. A very promising start to a career that I'm going to be following. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, available on Shudder online. And, you know, again, there are contrivances, and you've got to, roll your eyes at some of the plot holes and the idea that this girl could actually perhaps bring her brother back from the dead. Is sort of a stretch, but nonetheless, it's carried with such verve that I really I recommend it for fans of horror and monster movie stuff. Pretty damn good in that regard. And yeah. So
let's recap it if we can. Indiana Jones, you really liked it. I'm going to go see it because of what you said today. Ruby Gilman, the Teenage Kraken, okay. You thought it was unmemorable, really.
It has its moments. It's family entertainment. That's not terrible.
Yeah. Run, Rabbit, Run, you called it missable?
Yeah.
Yeah. You Hurt My Feelings, you loved it.
I thought it was beautifully done.
And The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, contrived but cool.
A lot of promise there. It's funny. She has a little notebook that says The Modern Prometheus, which was the subtitle to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein novel. I do want to also quickly say before we bail out, a few of the audience members here at the Mark Thompson Show were like, Michael, what's the deal with season 2 of The Bear? And I can tell you that season 2 of The Bear is not only on my radar, but it has been a total pleasure watching it. It's the second series of this outrageously good foodie dramedy from creator, writer, director Christopher Storer about a family-run Chicago beef sandwich shop. And after a bout of mismanagement, the shop becomes the responsibility of Carmi Berzatto, the family's wayward son, who had become a Michelin-starred chef and returns home to his roots to take over the business. And what happens over the course of these 2 seasons is absolutely wonderful and enthralling. The actors are terrific. Jeremy Allen White as Carmi, Eben Moss-Bacharach as his cousin Richie, Ayo Edebiri as Sydney, a young woman who starts working for the family at the shop and turns out to be a very skilled chef on her own, and Abby Elliott from SNL, Oliver Platt. There are supporting guest stars that include John Bernthal, Joel McHale, Alex Moffat, and Will Poulter. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll salivate because the food scenes are just delicious.
And it's called The Bear?
The Bear, and it's on FX and Hulu. Okay. Great stuff there.
You had a question from Square. He wanted to know if The Black Girl and Her Monster is on Prime, but I think you said Shudder, right?
I think it's on Shudder and via Crypt TV. I just run a search, people. Okay. Oh, hey, by the way,
Google it.
Google it. The sci-fi series that I have most doted on this year, Silo, has ended its first season today on Apple TV with a cliffhanger. And just a little side note, I've been enjoying the hell out of the animated series Clone High on Max, created by Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, both from Spider-Verse and Lego movies, and sitcom vet Bill Lawrence. It suggests what happens when mad scientists decide to clone famous people from history, and when they reach teenage, throw them together in a high school. And it is the love triangle of JFK, Joan of Arc, and Abe Lincoln is worth the trip. It's hilarious and very, very pointed and very, very contemporary and topical in how it approaches these characters and their histories.
Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster. People can find you at Culture Blaster and the Marina Times as well, correct?
You are correct. A more extensive discussion of the Indiana Jones movie and its predecessors in the Marina Times July issue. And it's always a pleasure, Kim. I wish you and your family a lovely holiday weekend.
You too. And thank you for bringing a little lightness and fun to our Friday, Michael Snyder.
My pleasure. Go Giants, everybody.
And that is Michael Snyder.